Hello, this is my retell for the civil rights history lesson, and this is my source language retell. So, there are a couple main stories from civil rights that we're going to discuss. The first one being that of Emmett Till. The instructor asks if anybody knows the story, so he can segue into it. He then, through his own discussion and some comments from the students, leads to how Emmett Till became a known story. He says that Emmett Till, being from, I believe he said Chicago, there wasn't as much of a stigma about race, so he went ahead and he had a white girlfriend. So when he was visiting family and relatives in the South, he was telling some of his buddies about it, saying that he had a white girlfriend, and then I guess to prove it, he went up and talked to a white woman. And during this time in the South, that was not an acceptable behavior. Black people weren't supposed to talk to white women, or white people in general. So the woman was very offended by this, and she goes home and tells her husband about it. Her husband goes and takes a group of his friends, and they murder Emmett Till. This was an outrage across the country, not just in the South, but definitely across the country. People were hearing about it and very upset. One of the reasons they were so upset, in addition to the crime itself, was that the white man was not convicted or found guilty. He was found innocent, even though he admitted to killing Emmett Till. One of the students interjects at some point and says, in his disbelief, he asks if the white man really got away with it, even though he confessed. And it was just a different time back then, and an all-white jury is not going to find a white man guilty of killing a black man. So after that story, the other main story is that of Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycotts. So Rosa Parks, prior to the event that we know about, is the most famous story. She had already been arrested for a similar situation on the bus. But Rosa Parks apparently decided to try again. And we know the famous quote about how her feet hurt. So she just decided to sit wherever. Rosa Parks, as we know, was asked to move, and she didn't. She was arrested for that. And kind of her arrest, in conjunction with everything else that was going on as far as civil rights in that time, led to the Montgomery bus boycotts. Another important feature here is that there was a lot of nonviolence and violence as far as how to react to the unfair treatment of black people. The violent end kind of consisted more of Malcolm X and the Black Panthers and that kind of thing. But the nonviolence section involved Martin Luther King Jr., as we know, and James Lawson. James Lawson went to India to kind of get the teachings from Gandhi about nonviolence and nonviolent protests and how to fight fire with water, I guess, instead of fighting fire with fire. And so James Lawson comes back to America, and he kind of works with Martin Luther King in doing a nonviolent approach to the situation. And the nonviolent approach, as we see, is a bunch of freedom marches, sit-ins, that kind of thing. Just protests in general, but peaceful protests. Then there's a civil rights bill that is discussed. Kennedy tried to pass it, and at some point Southern senators were the major factors who blocked that bill. They didn't want that to go through. They didn't want there to be equal treatment or integration, really, of black people. And speaking of integration, there was a situation in Little Rock, Arkansas. There was a group of 9 students who were going to be integrated, 9 black students integrated into an all-white school. And there are a lot of famous pictures of this. This is a very common event when discussing civil rights. They had to have basically a security team like celebrities do nowadays. They had to have security because people were very violent. They would verbally harass but also physically harass these students as they were trying to go to school. And this was supposed to be the first phase of integration at this particular school in this district. And then it was going to progress and they were going to add more and more black people to the school. But this was blocked, I believe, by the governor at the time. And he was so opposed to the idea of integration that he actually closed down all the schools in the district instead of having them integrate. Eventually, President Eisenhower, he knew that it's part of the president's duties to uphold what it says in the Constitution and what the laws say. So he hemmed and hawed about it a bit, but he definitely ended up saying that, integration has to happen, segregation is not legal. So the conversation kind of ends with that discussion and discrimination in general. Thank you.